Here's the recap of the first and second season of Arcane. The story unfolds in two diametrically opposed worlds: the technologically advanced upper city of Piltover and the gloomy, frightening lower city of Zaun. Between these areas, there are constant clashes over class inequality, and in another massacre, a huge number of people are killed. In this massacre, two sisters Vi and Powder lose their parents and are taken in by Vander, who is roughly speaking the leader of the lower city. After a few years, the girls and two other guys, Milo and Clagger, form their own small gang and do small thievery to survive. They get a tip that there is a scientist in Piltover who has something valuable at home, and they go there. Powder finds strange glowing crystals and drops one of them, causing an explosion and collapsing part of the building. They are chased by peacekeepers, which is the name of the police, but the main characters manage to escape. However, they are met by Zaun bandits who want to take away the loot. Vi and the boys manage to fight them off, but Powder, frightened, throws the loot into the river, even though she keeps the stolen crystals. The main characters return to the bar, where they are scolded by Vander, who is already aware of the incident. He goes to his old friend Benzo, trying to find out who attacked the sisters, but then the peacekeepers come and demand that Vander give up the teenagers, as he should know who did it, but he refuses to give up his own. From this conversation, we realize that Vander has made a pact with the peacekeepers in the past, which implies that Zaun does not get cocky and Piltover does not stick its nose in their business, and this pact has been broken. We also meet a boy named Echo, who works for Benzo and also knows the main characters. The gang that attacked the protagonists and tried to take their loot actually works for the criminal genius Silco, who sent them to spy on the sisters, but they went too far. Silco wants to start a new revolution against Piltover. We learn that in the past they were friends with Vander and fought for Zaun independence, but Vander decided to stop the violence and made peace agreements with Piltover. The friends quarreled over this, almost killing each other, and years later Silco dreams of revenge against Vander. He and a scientist named Singed create a substance called Shimmer, which can increase a person's strength several times, but also temporarily turns him into a monster and causes addiction. We also learn later on that Shimmer can be used in other ways, such as an energy source or medicine. We are told about the very scientist whose house is blown up by the main characters. His name is Jace, and as a child he and his mom are saved by a mysterious wizard. For the record, magicians in this universe are considered dangerous and they don't appear for nothing. Jace has been fascinated by magic throughout his life and has been looking for a way to combine it with technology and has been experimenting at home. His mentor, Heimerdinger, is against these experiments because they are dangerous, and the Piltover Council decides to destroy his research. However, Jace meets a scientist named Victor, and with the permission of Councilman Mel, they secretly continue their experiments. Eventually, they manage to make a breakthrough and curb the magic contained in the crystals, causing the council to agree to use the technology everywhere. Meanwhile, Vi realizes that the peacekeepers won't let them go and wants to surrender to the authorities to save her sister and friends, but Vander won't let her do so and surrenders himself. However, a Shimmer-enhanced Silco man kills the peacekeepers and kidnaps Vander. Vi orders Powder to stay at home and sets out with her friends to free Vander. It turns out it was a trap, and the main characters lock themselves away from Silco's thugs while running away. Powder did not listen to her sister and went after her. She, using an unstable crystal, creates a bomb and blows up the building where both the bad and good characters were, causing Milo and Clagger to die. Vander, while protecting Vi from a bandit under the Shimmer, is killed himself due to injuries. Vi meets her sister, blames her for the deaths of her friends, and leaves the girl. However, having come to her senses, she tries to return, but is caught by the peacekeepers. Silco finds Powder and, feeling sorry for the child, takes her under his wing. A few years later, thanks to Jace's developments called Hextech, Piltover becomes an influential trading city, and his inventions are used everywhere. The most valuable is a portal that can move airships great distances in seconds. Jace becomes quite influential, but Heimerdinger still warns him not to rush into using his new developments, as they could be used as weapons. However, Victor, having an incurable disease, continues his experiments as he hopes to use the hex tech to cure himself. Silco, having bribed peacekeepers, has been transporting Shimmer to Piltover for several years. A new faction, calling themselves the Firelights, are trying their best to stop Silco's men from smuggling the stuff and are raiding airships to torch the bandits' goods. Powder, now called Jinx, joined Silco. He has become very attached to her and sees her as his daughter. Jinx wants to impress her boss and steals a new development from Jace's lab, a stabilized magic crystal that can be used to power various unique mechanisms. She kills several peacekeepers and they, despite being bribed by Silco, go to him to demand that he hand over the culprit. Silco refuses to do so, which makes the heads of the other factions consider him weak, but at the end of the season he kills the conspirators. By the way, Jinx is a little bit cuckoo because of everything that happened to her in her childhood, and she is obsessed with explosions. Jinx starts experimenting with the crystal, and she realizes how it works. We are introduced to another character named Caitlin, who is Jace's childhood friend, and her mother is also on the Piltover Council. Caitlin is a peacekeeper and begins her independent investigation into the recent crystal theft and airship explosion by Firelights. She travels to the local prison, where she accidentally runs into Vi, who has been imprisoned all this time. Vi informs Caitlin that she will help her with the investigation. She releases her, and together they go to Zon. The women find out that Silco is behind all the crimes and that Jinx is working for him. The sisters eventually meet, but are interrupted by Firelights who kidnap Caitlin and Vi and manage to take the magic crystal from Jinx. It turns out the leader of the Firelights is Echo. This is the same boy who worked for Benzo in the past. He has gathered around him people who are not happy with Silco's criminal activities, and has built a safe house where the people can live in peace. Echo learns that Caitlin and Vi are also fighting the villain, and together they decide to go to Piltover to tell the council about all Silco's plans. Jace is made a member of the Piltover Council for his achievements. He begins an affair with a councilman named Mel, who plans to use the hex tech as a weapon and manipulates Jace, though she does so with good intentions. Jace is tasked with protecting the city from Zon, and after a while he brings up a vote to expel Heimerdinger from the council because he allowed this whole situation to happen without wanting to take more serious measures, such as using the hex tech as a weapon. Heimerdinger is expelled, he goes to Zon to help people, and at the end of the season he joins Echo and the Firelights. I should also note that the Firelights use their own kind of energy, which they apparently extract from bugs and power their devices with it. Meanwhile, Jace has to cooperate with the other counselors and participate in their corruption schemes in order to be able to continue his research. Victor, suffering even more from his illness, continues his research and accidentally drips blood on a mechanism he calls the Hex Core, causing it to seem to take on a mind of its own. Victor manages to adjust the mechanism to affect organics, but the effect is temporary. He goes to Zon to see his old friend Singed, the scientist who created the Shimmer, who leads him to believe that by combining this substance and Piltover's technology, the Hex Core can be stabilized. After returning to the lab and combining these two components, he creates a semi-magical artificial leg, and after a while, trying to repeat this experiment on the rest of the body, accidentally kills his assistant. The guy wants to end his life, but Jace stops him. Vi, Echo, and Caitlin cross the bridge leading to Piltover and are ambushed by peacekeepers bribed by Silco. However, the unstable Jinx detonates bombs on the bridge, killing all the peacekeepers and injuring the main characters. Caitlin and Vi go to Piltover while Echo fights Jinx. Eventually, during another explosion, Echo injures her leg and escapes, while the seriously injured Jinx is found by Silco. He takes her to Dr. Singed and he uses a shimmer to put her back on her feet, causing her to become stronger and more unstable. I'd also like to mention that Silco has a right hand named Sevika. Vi fights her a few times and at the end of the season she wins and we don't know what happened to Sevika next. Mel's mother, who is the leader of another country, comes to Piltover, and we learn that she banished her daughter here in the past because the girl was too kind. Mel's mother also meets with Jace and leads him to believe that he is being too soft on Zon. Her goals aren't very clear, but apparently she wants to get technology and weapons from Piltover. Caitlin and Vi make it to Piltover, but it turns out Jinx stole the crystal from them at the last minute. However, they convince Jace to use the Hex Tech as a weapon. He gives Vi a pair of power gloves and makes a special hammer for himself. Without telling the council, he and Vi attack the Shimmer Factory, which is guarded by Silco's super soldiers. The main characters defeat everyone, but Jace accidentally kills a child working in this factory. Because of this, he realizes that it is dangerous to use such weapons and, meeting Silco, makes a truce with him. He promises to grant Zahn independence, in exchange for banning the production of Shimmer and giving them Jinx. Powder learns of this agreement and kidnaps her boss. Knowing that Vi and Caitlin are friends, Jinx gets jealous and kidnaps both of them. All of them, along with Silco, wake up tied up and Jinx tries to sort out her feelings. Caitlin manages to get out and a fight ensues in which Jinx mortally wounds Silco. Before he dies, he informs her that he would never betray her. Jinx, in a rage, takes out a rocket launcher powered by the same magic crystal and fires it into the building where the council is voting to recognize Zahn as an independent city. This is the end of the first season. Let's pause for a moment. Here you can like this video, subscribe to my channel, and write some comments. Thanks. An explosion set off by Jinx kills almost all of the counselors. Jace, Mel, Shula, and Salo survive, though he is crippled. Victor is also injured in the explosion. Jace rushes to the lab to save his friend and has no choice but to use the Hex Core, even though he promised Victor earlier that he would destroy this dangerous technology. Soon, the remaining council is trying to figure out what to do about the situation. Just then, Mel's mother, named Ambessa, begins to push the rulers of Piltover to launch a full-scale Hextech operation in Zahn. However, no one listens to her at first. Caitlin is furious since her mother was also killed in the explosion. She wants to kill Jinx and take revenge. Caitlin offers Vi to join the Peacekeepers, but she refuses at first. Also, a relationship begins between them. Soon, during the unveiling of the memorial to the fallen counselors, the city is attacked by super soldiers from Zahn, who are now ruled by uncontrolled gangs from the lower world. The Peacekeepers fail to protect the citizens, and Ambessa's soldiers arrive to help. I remind you that Ambessa is a warlord of a neighboring country. Later, we learn that she is the one who organized the attack. Soon, Ambessa is attacked by a new force called the Black Rose, who apparently can take on any form or control people. She claims that the War Lady has stolen something very valuable from her. And towards the end of the season, we finally learn that it is because of the wizards that Ambessa has come to Piltover, as they hold their country in fear, and the woman tries to find a weapon against them. Ambessa manages to fight off the Black Rose, but in return the wizard kidnaps her daughter Mel. After an attack during the unveiling of a memorial to fallen counselors, the rulers agree to use the Hextech to wipe out gangs in Zahn. Caitlin, being the daughter of a powerful family, becomes the commander of a special squad, and along with Vi, wipes out gangsters throughout the lower city. Meanwhile, the Peacekeepers continue to nightmare ordinary people on the streets of Zahn. Because of this, a real rebellion breaks out, and Jinx becomes a symbol of resistance. Jinx herself does nothing for this and continues to suffer because of Silco's death. Meanwhile, the gang leaders realize that if they surrender Jinx to the Peacekeepers, the onslaught of the authorities will subside, and it will be easier for them to do their dirty deeds again. They decide to find Jinx, but Savika warns her. After that, they together get rid of the most evil leader of the gang. There, Jinx also meets a girl named Isha, who sees her as a hero. They become friends and start to be like sisters to each other. On top of that, Jinx makes a mechanical arm for Savika. Jinx discovers that the people of Zahn are starting to get sick because of the waste that the citizens of Piltover are releasing into the lower world. She wants to take revenge on the upper city, so she begins to prepare her plan. Meanwhile, Caitlin and Vi decide to kill Jinx after all, believing her to be hopelessly insane. They track her down and even manage to defeat the villain, but Vi stops Caitlin from pulling the trigger, as she could hurt the child who rushed to Jinx's aid. Just then, Jinx launches her plan to get revenge on Piltover, She blows up the city's ventilation ducts, causing the upper world to fill with noxious fumes painted in different colors. Jinx manages to escape, but Caitlin gets angry with Vi and they break up. Victor comes to his senses and realizes that the Hex Core has completely changed him. He is not happy that Jace saved him by using technology that could be dangerous to the entire world. Victor leaves the lab and wanders around Zone. As he watches the people of the lower city suffer, he decides not to stand by and uses his newfound powers to heal the citizens who need help. He then creates a sort of cult where he becomes the spiritual leader. At the same time, he studies the Hex Core and Arcane as a whole. For the record, all magic is called Arcane here. The firelights take in more and more people because of the chaos in the streets of the lower city. Soon they notice that their so-called sacred tree is beginning to show signs of decay. Heimerdinger claims to have seen this and together with Echo sneaks into Jace's laboratory. It turns out that due to the widespread use of Hextech, it has a side effect that had not been detected before. The trio goes deep underground, where roughly speaking there is a repository of all Hex energy, which powers Piltover's most important invention, the Hex Portal. It's a huge device that can move airships great distances in seconds. Suddenly, space distorts and a huge anomaly appears, which swallows the main characters. Apparently, this orb is polluting the plants in Zon. Ambessa takes advantage of all the chaos in Piltover. She proposes that Caitlin be appointed general and that martial law be imposed on the city. The remaining councilors agree with her opinion. Meanwhile, we are shown Dr. Singe throughout the season. He sets himself up a new laboratory where he experiments on animals and humans while using the shimmer on them. Soon, the people of Zon have a meeting to discuss the future of their city, but the peacekeepers decide to arrest all the disgruntled people. Among those caught was Isha, who is Jinx's friend, as well as the scientist Singed. The man purposely leaves a trail of blood behind him, only to be found by the monster he created. Meanwhile, Jinx learns that her friend Isha has been caught by the peacekeepers, and she and Savika go to the prison to free her. Along the way, she frees the other inhabitants of Zone. At this time, the Singed's monster gets to the prison and starts killing both peacekeepers and prisoners. Jinx tries to stop him, as she suddenly realizes that under the monster's guise is Vander. Recognizing Jinx, he stops attacking her and escapes. Jinx finds her sister Vi, who has been fighting in underground arenas and getting drunk to drown her sorrows all this time. Jinx tells her about Vander in the body of a monster, and they go in search of him. They eventually find him, but Vander's mental state is in bad shape. So they decide to go to the slums of Zon, where a man who can cure any sickness is rumored to be. We learn that during this time the cult, which Victor created, is flourishing, and he has helped more than a dozen desperate residents of the city. The main characters ask Victor to cure Vander and he agrees. Though this task is not easy. The man's consciousness is closely intertwined with the personality of the beast. But Victor and his imaginary assistant manage to gradually break through to Vander's true consciousness. Ambessa and Caitlin are interrogating Singed. They've figured out that the monster is his work. Plus, we learn that Singed used to be a respected scientist in Piltover. But when his daughter fell ill with an incurable disease, he began conducting experiments that went beyond what was allowed. The monster created by Singed is another step towards resurrecting his daughter, who is in a half-living state. And for further experiments, he needs Piltover's resources. Ambassa realizes how valuable the scientist's developments are, because thanks to such technology, it is possible to create incredibly strong soldiers. Soon, Singed creates a device that can track the monster, and they reach the cult created by Victor. The scientist goes to talk to his former student and asks him to give him Vander, but Victor refuses. Vi notices Singed leaving the camp and follows him. She meets Caitlin, and from her she learns exactly what Ambessa is up to. It turns out that Caitlin stopped trusting her a long time ago, but she can't stand up to the warrior on her own. They realize that the soldiers will soon attack the camp and kidnap Wander, so Caitlin decides to help the main characters. Vi manages to immobilize Ambessa, but soon she frees herself and directs her soldiers to attack. At this time, Salo, who has become a follower of Victor and healed his legs, is on a mission from his leader to go down to the vault of all Hex energy, where Jace, Echo, and Heimerdinger disappeared earlier. Suddenly, the anomaly reappears, and out of it emerges a frazzled Jace, who is clearly not in his right mind. He intends to destroy the Hex core by any means necessary, as he considers it a curse for humans. Victor communicates with him through Salo, and tells him that he will continue to use the Hex core for good. However, Jace kills Salo, preventing him from taking out the canisters of Hex energy. Soon, Jace reaches Victor's cult camp and kills his friend. Victor's death entails the death of all of his followers as well. Vander also completely loses his mind and attacks the soldiers, who have just arrived. In the heat of battle, Isha snatches Jinx's gun and sacrifices herself to end Vander's torment. We are shown where Jace, Echo, and Heimerdinger go after encountering the anomaly. They are transported to parallel universes. Echo and Heimerdinger find themselves in a world where the Hex tech was never invented. Because the Day Powder and Vi stole the crystals from Jace, there was a more powerful explosion that killed Vi. However, in this universe, it seems as if things have only gotten better. Echo and Heimerdinger realize they still need to go back. So they begin to invent a mechanism that can recreate the anomaly. At the same time, Echo creates a device that can rewind time back a few seconds. In the end, Echo moves back to his universe, and Heimerdinger sacrifices himself to help him. Meanwhile, Jace has found himself in a completely different world. Here, an anomaly has destroyed all living things except for the mechanical dolls that follow the main character. He tries for a while to figure out what happened here. Eventually, Jace gets to the epicenter of the apocalypse and finds his dead body standing on top of a Hex portal. In this universe, Jace was unable to save the world. A wizard from his childhood appears, and Jace asks him to bring him back to his world so he can make things right and prevent his universe from being destroyed. After that, he returns home. Meanwhile, Mel comes to her senses in a prison of sorts and meets Black Rose. She reveals that Mel is not actually Ambessa's own daughter. She was stolen from the wizards years ago and is Black Rose's sister. She wants Mel to stop her mother, as the warlord simply wanted to use her daughter as a weapon against her own kind. Mel agrees to help and finally awakens her true powers as a sorceress. Afterward, she returns to Piltover, where she meets Jace. Singed uses the monster's blood and resurrects Victor, who begins to transform himself. He creates a mechanical doll and goes to meet with Jace and Mel. Victor tells them that he wants to use Arcane to make the world a better place, to unite all humans, which will solve the major flaws of humanity. The main characters can't let that happen, as it means that all people will die and simply be transported to some other level of existence. That is why they reject Victor, and with difficulty destroy his puppet. After that, the villain finally evolves and begins to create his mechanical army. Jace realizes that Victor's dolls and Ambessa's army they can't defeat, but the main characters need to at least hold them off while Jace disconnects Hex Portal from the power source. Piltover and Zahn team up and prepare to attack. However, the invaders manage to prevail. Further events will happen in parallel and very rapidly. I'll tell you about them separately, but keep in mind that they are all happening at the same time. Caitlin and Mel fight Ambessa and eventually defeat the warrior. Mel sends her to the Black Rose, but as I understand it, the sorceress is not a good character and used Mel for her own purposes. However, Mel realized this and chased the Black Rose away with her magic. Meanwhile, Vi, Jinx, and a returned Echo fight Victor's dolls and the strongest of them all, the very monster. Jinx sacrifices herself. She saves her sister and blows herself up along with Vander. Meanwhile, Jace fails to shut down the reactor and Victor activates it again. The action moves to the roof of the Hex portal, where everything starts to repeat the same as in the parallel dimension, where everyone died. That's when Echo appears and tries to stop Victor over and over again by traveling back in time. Eventually, he overloads his device and throws it at Victor. Because of this, Jace comes to his senses and shows his friend the truth. It turns out that the very wizard from his childhood is actually Victor. He achieved his goal and united all the souls of people, but this way meant complete loneliness, as nothing else developed and simply perished. So Victor, in different universes, tried to create someone who would be able to stop him. Jace says that they will only stop it together, after which they self-destruct. Some time passes. Vi and Caitlin get back together. Singed resurrects his daughter in the form of a doll. Mel returns to her homeland with Abmessa's army. And among Piltover's advisors, Zaun's representatives finally appear. This is the end of the second season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.